and welcome to this second event on the cycle Italy and Turkey Bridge towards Asia and Africa. Today we will be focusing on Italy and Turkey by providing a legal perspective on the investment towards Africa and Asia. These cycles of conference is organized by the Observatory on Turkey by CESPI and Legal Office Grimaldi and Partner, based in Rome with its affiliation office in Istanbul, Turkey. Basically, this is going to be the second event. The first one was held last February on the 17th as a webinar format. And we introduced the result of the survey on the level of satisfaction of the Italian companies operating in Turkey. And once again, the level of satisfaction scored a brilliant level. Almost 80% of the Italian companies in Turkey are more than satisfied in operating in the Turkish market. And it shows a great strength of the Turkish market as well. And the majority of the companies that we consider for the service, more than 90% actually, are more than happy in operating in Turkey because they consider Turkey as a useful bridge in order to access third countries as well. Before giving the floor to the other speakers, I apologize for we had some technical issues related to the simultaneous translation. So today it seems that we'll go on in English. And I would like just to remind you that we will collect some questions that we will address to each speaker. So you will find the Q&A section on the Zoom platform. Please write your question and to whom you are directing the question, and then we will open the floor for the debate. Now I will leave Mr. Çağatay Erten, who is the Grimaldi Alliance partner in Turkey, and he's a valuable lawyer with a great experience at the international level as well. Thank you, Çağatay.
Thank you very much. Hi to everyone, actually from Istanbul. It's a snowy day in Istanbul, so I hope that the presentations are going to be in a way that you will enjoy. So, shall I share my presentation?
Yes, just a brief note. I forgot to mention that you will address the topic of the investment in Turkey as a bridge towards Asia and Africa, right?
That's
so
correct.
Yeah, thank you. You can share the presentation.
That's correct. Yes. First of all, the subject that I'm going to talk about is quite a general one. Right now, it's atypical. It's not a typical legal presentation. The legal presentations are generally very specific. They go deep in one point. But this presentation will talk about the Turkey and Italy, how they can act together in open markets in Asia and Africa. But it's also going to talk about what kind of a place it is, and whether or not it's the proper place to make an investment from the eye of a foreign investor. In this presentation, I'm taking a role of a lawyer. I'm going to present you my points on my case. I hope that I can convince you at the end of the presentation that Turkey is a place to invest, and it can open certain markets in Asia and Africa together with Italy. So, in order to decide for an investor to invest in a country, to put their money there, there needs to be certain things. The investors are sure of certain things. So there should be certain conditions that exist in this market. To that respect, it's important that the private market is a large, sizable market, that even if it's not large, it has the potential to get large in the future, actually. It's also important that consumers are willing to spend money, and they can do that for a long period of time in the market. From the eye of an investor, the location of the market is also very important, whether or not it is in a critical location, how the logistics are going to work out. And also, of course, the regulations of the market are very important, so that the market should be pro-investor, and the investors can do their jobs actually in the best manner that they can do, and harvest their profits, and to get their profits out of the country whenever it's necessary. Target markets also needs to be lawful countries, actually, so that the safety of an investor can be assured. That is one of the most important things for an investor. Let's see if these conditions are met in the case of Turkey, actually. So, I mean, in terms of the size of a market, Turkey is a very large market. I mean, it is a populous country. It ranks actually number 18 on the population-wise, in accordance with 2022 numbers. And also the population is also growing. So that's an also very important thing. So we got around 4 million people living in Turkey. And basically these people are not, these people are the Turkish citizens. And now these numbers don't include the refugees that Turkey has received actually for quite a number of years, and probably there are 4 or 5 million refugees in Turkey, so it's going to be add up onto this number. The fact that it's growing is also a very important factor, because as you see in some of the markets in this list, actually they're shrinking in terms of population. So let's say that, you know, let's give an example of Russia. There are predictions that if the birth rate stays like this in the future as well, Turkey is going to catch Russia's population in about 20-25 years. By 2050, Turkish population is going to be equal to Russian population. And we can also say this for Japan. Japan's population is 125 million, but it's shrinking day by day. So, and also Japan is one of the countries that doesn't get a lot of immigration. So basically in this list, probably we're expecting that Turkey is going to be rising up in the coming years. Coming to the, you know, the consumers who are willing to spend, and they're willing to spend long time. That in order to be able to do that, you need to live a little bit longer than, you know, definitely. So basically in Turkey, our median age is 21 years old, which is, if you compare it with Europe, actually, it is a very young country. It's not as young as Africa, it's around 20 years of age. But it's definitely younger than the most developed markets. We're talking about, for instance, USA, it's around 40 years old, UK is around 40. Italy, for instance, stands out as a population which is getting older. It's the Italian average age is 47, and the world average is around 30 years old. So basically, from that perspective, people in Turkey are still young. They're getting married. They're having babies. They're moving to their apartments. They need to spend a lot, and they're planning to do that for a longer period of time. So from that point as well, I think Turkey takes the box. Coming to location, it is pretty clear that if you look at the world map, actually, it's pretty clear that Turkey is in the middle of everywhere. So it is, well, Napoleon Bonaparte once said that if the earth were a single state, Istanbul would be its capital. I believe he said that because of its geographical location. in any ways, but that is somehow is not a kind of a baseless statement. If you look at the map and if you see the how the human flow happened from the Turkish land over the last few hundred years, you will see that. Geographically, Turkey is in the middle of two worlds, the developed world and a developing world. So it has a large land in between. So there is this gives Turkey a strategic location advantage between Asia and Europe. Whenever I'm saying advantage, of course, it is a different region. I mean, Turkey is, Turkey is a neighbor to Europe, but it's also a neighbor to a lot of other Eastern countries where there are definitely different worlds there, actually. If you see Turkish neighbors, it's basically, you will see the Middle East, in the Middle East, we're neighbors to Syria, Iraq, Iran, and also we are also neighbors with Greece in the West. So Turkey is also in the middle of the energy lines, which is very important. I mean, the last events that we unfortunately went through in the last 15-20 days shows the importance of these energy lines and energy flow from certain locations in the Middle East to Europe. This is also a very important, strategic advantage and location of Turkey. Turkey, because of this location, probably, and also Turkey is a beautiful country like Italy. So Turkey receives 50 million tourists every year, which is a huge number, actually. I didn't look into it. I don't look into how it ranks actually in the world. It's probably in the top 20. It should be in the top 20. It has a large population, very young, and also because of its location, it's receiving a lot of tourists. Turkish economy has grown quite a bit, actually. If you see the figures in this in this chart, you will see the evolution starting from 1986. There, Turkey had $100 billion economy, but today it's around $800 billion level, which is already ranking as in the first 20 largest economy in the world. I think because of the inflation that we had in the last couple of years, it ranked a bit lower than before, but still is a very large economy, and it's going to get larger. That's not what I'm saying. That's what IMF is saying. It is basically going to be by 2026. It is probably going to be $1.3 trillion or $1.4 trillion economy. So, which is exactly assuring the place in the first 20 of the largest markets in terms of the nominal gross domestic product. Well, so far we understand that it's a large market, young, and location-wise it's good, it's big economy, and but what about labor practices? I mean, how the labor works in Turkey, how we work in Turkey actually. So we work longer hours than most nations actually. Turkey works, Turkey works probably 48 hours per week. I mean, definitely much longer than Italian, German and Netherlands, France, countries like that, developed world. And minimum wage is around 4,250 Turkish liras in Turkey right now, which is unfortunately came down to 275 euros. It's a very low figure because of the inflation that we had in the last year actually, and this year as well. So we have less annual leaves. in the year, so it's much less than many countries around the world. But we have an educated workforce actually in both blue collar and white collar. So in terms of labor practices, we're talking about a large country with young, population in a critical location, work more than most nations with a lower minimum wage and basically with an educated workforce. Yes, the fact that our minimum wage is so low may make people think that the working conditions must also be very lousy, which is not the case actually. Yes, the minimum wage is low in Turkey because of the currency situation, especially with the currency situation. However, the labor practices, labor law is improved enough actually to provide Turkish workers a good labor standards actually. I'm not saying that Turkey doesn't have any labor problem. It has, definitely. There's lots of things to do actually in that respect in Turkey, but we have similar regulations with EU in many labor matters. So this is thanks to EU, the approximation of laws between EU and Turkey, because Turkey is a candidate of full member to EU. They applied a while ago, maybe 25, 30 years ago, and it is the longest applicant so far. But in the meanwhile, what we're doing is that we are approximating our laws to EU's. So the Turkish regulations are quite similar to EU regulations. We have unions and union regulations. We have workplace regulations, fixed term labor and indefinite term labor, part-time employment, full-time employment, remote working are very well actually explained in the laws. We have HSE regulations. As Turkey is a manufacturing country, this is very important. We have HSE regulations, and it is very well audited by the government. We have worker rights. It's not, if you put aside we are working more and paid less, it is basically the worker rights are still there. We have a working social security system. It is especially good if you consider the people's ability to reach the healthcare system. So basically, we have a working social security system, and this social security system is in connection with the European countries' social security systems very well with the bilateral treaties. Well, in Turkey, the latest improvements in the labor law is the mandatory mediation in labor disputes. Before you file a lawsuit against your employer, you need to go to a mediation process, and there you stand, you sit down on the table actually together with your employer and discuss the conditions with that employer. And if there is no agreement between you, that's in accordance with that system, if there is no agreement between you and the employer, then a lawsuit may be filed. But before going through this process, you cannot file a lawsuit against your employer. So I must tell you that our firm is very much dealing with these labor matters, and this system, this mandatory mediation system, helped it a lot in terms of decreasing the number of lawsuits filed every day in the courts. This is a working system. Well, the other important aspect why you should invest in Turkey is also, we have various available dispute resolution options, which is very important, because if everything goes right, no one's going to file a lawsuit, no one's going to have disputes with each other. But we're not living in that kind of world. I mean, there are definitely disputes in between people, countries, companies, everything. So it is important in a market where these dispute resolution options are available, because at the end of the day, you're going to end up in courts. And Turkish courts, for instance, can say that there might be some criticism coming from the European Union, definitely Turkish courts, which is a based criticism. I should give it that. However, you need to, if you're talking about the business life, you need to talk about the commercial litigation and also the labor litigation. That's basically what you're referring to. And the Turkish courts are quite good, actually. They work hard again. I mean, they have lots of disputes in their hands. It takes a long time, but generally the good verdicts are received. So if you don't want to go to a court, mediation is also available. Mediation option is very important, so that, as I mentioned, in the labor law system, I mean, between the employers and the employees, and also in the commercial law, it's already introduced in the commercial law disputes as well, so that mandatory mediation process is relevant for that as well. So before filing a lawsuit to a third party, you should go to the mediation process, go through the mediation process, and then if you cannot resolve the dispute there, then it will become a lawsuit. In the labor lawsuits, it's working really good. In this area, I didn't see the numbers, but in accordance with our experience, it's working less. I can say that the companies are not willing to agree with each other during the mediation process most of the time. We have domestic arbitration as a potential resolution options. You know, domestic arbitration is very well developed, and we have several different arbitration authorities. They are established under the trade unions or trade, the commercial registries. So, for instance, İSTAK is one of them, and our firm is a founding partner of İSTAK. So that arbitration process, domestic arbitration process, is going well, and more and more people actually, and also the companies mainly, they choose arbitration over local courts because it takes less time. It probably is a bit more expensive, but not that much, and it's definitely less expensive than the international arbitration processes. The domestic arbitration, the decisions given by the domestic arbitrators, they don't need to be enforced. They don't need to be you don't need an enforcement award to enforce them. Actually, they're automatically enforceable, like the court decisions. Coming to international arbitration, Turkey is a party to New York Convention, and international arbitration is also, therefore, international arbitration is also available, actually. Foreign arbitral awards can easily be enforced in Turkey by filing an enforcement lawsuit. And basically, in that case, the Turkish courts cannot interfere with the basics of the case. They can only see it from the procedural point of view, and they have to give their decision in a short period of time. Therefore, international arbitration arbitral awards can be enforced in Turkey as well. So far, I hope that I can convince you that Turkey is not such a bad place to invest, because it's large market, young, and critical position, critical location, and it has established labor practices, very favorable labor practices, and established labor law system. Plus, if anything goes wrong, you have all of these four available dispute resolution options, like in the developed countries. So I hope that so far I convince you that Turkey is a good place to invest. Coming to how we can do that, actually, if you're convinced, you may now want to hear how an investment can be made in Turkey. This section of the presentation will talk about the advantages of such investments. It is not a secret that Turkey is having a hard time attracting foreign investment, actually, for the last couple of years, actually another couple of years, maybe 5 years. It was a difficult time for Turkey during these years. Of course, the last 2 years was pandemics, but before that, Turkey had its own internal affairs, internal events, which are unfortunate, so they didn't help with the investment environment. But now I will tell you how you can invest. I mean, you can invest in basically using 2 tools. One is basically an Italian company or a foreign company may acquire a Turkish company through an M&A process. So in that case, basically you're going to be already buying a portion of a company which is already doing business in Turkey. So definitely you're going to be in the market. Or secondly, you may choose to come to this country, directly invest into this country by forming a company here in Turkey. So the processes are pretty much the same everywhere, and Turkey is not an exception. Needless to say, there are some market entry requirements in certain industries like tobacco, energy, telecommunications. But apart from that, a few things. There are a few things that foreign companies can do. The foreign companies may enjoy the government incentive in Turkey, actually, by buying a Turkish company, which is a good way to come in. And I will show you that in the last few years, actually, there is also an increasing trend to come to this country, this market, through acquiring small and medium-sized companies. So M&A process starts with, of course, negotiations. The parties come together and they negotiate the type of an investment that's going to be made and the basic principles around it. And lawyers and tax experts, they do a due diligence, financial and legal due diligences, like anywhere else in the world. And as a result of this due diligence process, you may understand the risks of investing, or maybe advantages of investing in this country. And then a merger or share purchase agreement is signed, so that the deal is almost sealed. Of course, there are several processes that needs to be done in the company, like approving new shareholders in the General Assembly, etc. These kind of processes need to be complied. Competition approval authority, if it is needed, need to be received, and then the M&A is registered and announced, actually. Well, if you see the statistics, yeah, Turkey is not definitely is not receiving enough investment from the world outside. However, it's an increasing trend. Look, I mean, in 2019 it was $5.3 billion. Now we're talking about $10.1 billion in 2021, which is already a kind of a pandemic year. It is in the increasing trend. That means from 9 to 10, it's a large increase in the numbers. We took this information from Deloitte's site, which they keep track of such statistics in many countries, and it indicates that the M&A, the foreign investment into Turkey started to grow with M&As. In this slide as well, you may see a breakdown of what kind of activities are happened in Turkey. Look at the numbers. It's in 2017 it was 295. Then it's a drop, 256, 232, 33. As of 2020, actually, it started to increase. And now there we see a big increase in the numbers of deals happening in Turkey. So, and the deal volume is summing up to $10 billion, $10.1 billion. I mean, 58% of it is a foreign investment, which is already a good thing. So you see the average deal size. You will see in the Western world, actually, it's this number is way bigger than Turkish size, because the Turkey, maybe one of the strengths of the industry of the Turkish economy is that it is not made of by big, very large players in the market. We don't see a lot of $10 billion, $15 billion companies around, but we see thousands of smaller companies. We see middle-sized and small-sized companies doing interesting businesses. I mean, they're manufacturing a lot of stuff for their important brands in the West. So that these companies are generally targets of the M&A processes. I mean, if you're talking about Italy and Turkey, we already know that Italy and Turkey has, good relationship, actually great relationship in terms of trade and in other areas as well. The Italian and Turkish trade, definitely Turkey, as per my knowledge, Italy is the second largest business partner of Turkey in Europe, and European Union is basically the major business partner of Turkey. So in this chart, I wanted to show you that these are, by the way, these are just an examples. I mean, that we find out, but there are maybe hundreds of more companies are merging, and the Turkish companies mainly acquired by the Italian companies, but these are only the certain things. But you see one trend here. Italian companies are coming to Turkey more than Turkish companies are going to Italy. So, I mean, that is probably because of the things that I mentioned, and Italy has larger economy and also larger companies, and they are now in the phase of investing outside of Italy, which is happening for probably a few decades. And Turkey is one of the targets of the Italian companies, which is a good thing. Yeah, I mean, M&A process is one thing to think about it, but you may also have other options. You may come to country actually directly by not acquiring a company, but by establishing a company. Actually, we can establish either a joint stock company or a limited liability company in Turkey, or you can have some branches. You can even create a liaison office. And the setup process is basically not that difficult. You need to choose a type of entity, which is generally it's not a very difficult thing. I mean, there are some differences in between type of entities, and I will tell you about that. But the important thing is that after choosing the type of the entity, you need to file the necessary filings with the trade registry, and then you should make the tax registry. So, as I mentioned, these corporations, if you want to come to Turkey, we can have branches, liaison offices, corporate subsidiaries, but the liaison offices, they are not allowed to conduct commercial activity in Turkey, whereby branches and corporate subsidiaries like the joint stock companies and limited liability companies are able to conduct business activity and pay taxes in Turkey. They can distribute their dividends, and also the investors can get these dividends out of the country very easily. There are some, I mean, it is important to consult a lawyer, of course, before doing work here, because for certain things, actually, you cannot you only may have one type of company. So, for instance, in order to be able to give insurance services or banking services in Turkey, you need to establish a joint stock company. You cannot establish a limited liability company. There are also some other differences in between. So, for instance, limited liability companies can only have 50 shareholders, but joint stock companies are limitless on this. So you can have as many shareholders as you want actually in the joint stock companies. Well, I mean, it's another important element is basically limited liability company shareholders of limited liabilities companies are responsible for public debts actually to an amount that they agreed to invest in the capital of a company. However, in joint stock companies, there is no responsibility for shareholders. The only responsibility lies with the board of directors and also the head of the board of directors. So basically, apart from that, there is no responsibility for the shareholders. While I'm saying public debts, I'm talking about the taxes and also social security premiums, actually. The limited liability companies at least have, one shareholder should hold the management and representations powers, but in joint stock companies, it is enough if a board member do that for a shareholder. So shareholders, they don't need to have these representation duties. So, I mean, these kind of things are important to consider, and while knowing what kind of investment that you're going to do, what kind of business that you're going to conduct in Turkey, you need to consult with your lawyer and to see which is suitable for the investment. Well, company establishments are not that hard. I mean, they used to be very hard. They used to take a lot of time, actually, and I believe Mr. Costa is going to talk about that in a more detailed way. However, now we can definitely create a joint stock company in a week time, if everything is ready. Of course, I'm talking about sometimes certain things that the shareholders need to comply with takes time, especially if you're talking about foreign shareholders, we're talking about a foreign investment, then some processes may take time, like the notarization process, but generally it is doable in a very short period of time. Here, I'm also giving some details that the minimum share capital in joint stock company is 50,000 liras, which is around like 4,000 euros, and the limited liability company is around probably is even $800, so 800 euros. Well, for the branches, no minimum share capital, and branches are represented by branch manager, but they can do most of the things that the companies can do. I mean, as I mentioned, this presentation is supposed to be a kind of a general one, so that I'm not going deep in every subject, but each slide of this presentation can be opened to be a legal presentation, which may bore you for a few hours. So I'm not going to do that definitely here. As I mentioned, license offices, there shouldn't be any commercial activity. It's only to get to know the market and follow it up. Well, it's coming to profit distribution. It is an important aspect of an investment that, of course, investors, why they invest to make money. They invest to get a return for their investment. Well, in Turkey, if you are in a good business, if you're doing a good business in your sector, if you have dividends paid by your company to the shareholders, so basically it is a very free financial environment. As you see here in this slide, upon the enactment of the FDI, Foreign Direct Investment Law, Turkey's international investors have gained some rights and obligations. So they can definitely buy and sell foreign currency through banks, they can transfer their dividends outside of Turkey easily, profits outside of Turkey easily, and also entitled to make money transfers abroad for every kind of thing. So basically, it has a free. It has the Turkish market is a free market for the foreign investors. That's what I can say. Well, in certain countries, there are some requirements for the foreign investors to be lower than 50%, or even if they're higher than 50%, local shareholders are needed. But here in Turkey, actually, you can do almost everything by 100% foreign-owned companies. So it is allowed to own all the company. The other thing that is important also, that you may have 100% foreign board of directors. You don't need a Turkish board of directors. So basically, you can do everything with a vehicle, a company, which is 100% owned by a foreign company and basically with a foreign board. Well, the other important aspect is, of course, taxation. I mean, so far we've seen, I would be glad if I convinced you to that Turkey is a good place to invest, and then you saw how you can come into Turkish market, and then we see whenever you come to Turkish market for the activities that you do, for the premiums that you get from this market, for the dividends that you get this market, how you're going to be taxed and how your company is taxed. That's a very important element from the eye of an investor. The corporate rate in Turkey is 20%, but it applies the corporate tax rate, but it applies as 23% for 2022, and it applied like 25% for 2021. That was a result of an amendment, a temporary amendment made in the corporate tax law. We are hoping that this is going to be over soon, and the Turkish corporate tax is going to be coming down to 20% levels if the amendment is not extended another year or so. So we have a fiscal year which starts in January 1 and ends in December 31, but you can also get other fiscal years properly, properly complying with your standards or with your other markets. We have customers, we have clients actually who have their calendar years in a different time place. Well, you got some exemptions in the corporate tax, so it is important to see that these exemptions. I'm not sure if these exemptions are already exist in different parts of the world, but for Turkey they're really big actually. I mean, we're talking about 75%, 50%, sometimes 100% exemptions. We're talking about if 75% of the profits arising from the sales of participation stocks included in the assets of the corporation for at least 2 full years, is basically 75% of this amount is going to be exempt from the corporate tax. If you're selling a property which you hold on actually for more than 2 years, I mean, the capital gains tax that you're going to pay amounts that amount is going to be 50% deductible from the corporate tax. 100% of the profits produced by corporations from their participation in the capital of other corporations are also tax exempt. So, I mean, we got, as you see here, we got a good tax exemptions under Turkish corporate taxation regime. Well, coming to dividends, it is very important that the dividends are paid and also are, for a foreign investor especially, can be taken out of Turkey properly and easily, which is the case in Turkey actually. So the only thing that the company needs to deduct from the dividends is 10% withholding tax. So I have another chart for the withholding tax that is in various issues, in various cases, there are different withholding tax amounts or percentages, but here for the dividends 10% and this profits, whenever you deduct 10% of it, this deduction can be recovered in accordance with the bilateral treaties in between those countries. Definitely, I know that Italy and Turkey has a lot of bilateral treaties, investment treaties, and also double taxation treaties. So you can recover your 10% in the Italy as well. So coming to other, withholding taxes. So again, the dividend distribution is 10%, but withholding taxes on certain issues are around 20%. So these professional fees, for instance, lawyer fees, is subject to 20% withholding tax if you're basically getting a profit in Turkey as a law firm from a country out of Turkey, then you need to deduct 20% of it as a withholding tax. So basically, this tax regime is full of some good alternatives and good ways to pay your taxes. Now I'm going to talk a bit why Turkey is a good partner to Italy in Africa and Asia. After investing, I couldn't talk about this topic actually without giving you some information about investing in Turkey, because at the end of the day, if Turkey is going to open markets for Italian companies, it's going to open if the Italian companies either come to Turkey by direct investment or acquire a Turkish company in Turkey. And I will show you that there is already a kind of political will behind it. Former Italian ambassador to Ankara, Mr. Massimo Gianni, in one of its interviews, in one of the events actually, mentioned that Turkey might be a very good partner for Italy, and Turkey and Italy can get rid of these hardships actually of the pandemic situation by acting together. So there is already, and also I can give you examples from the Turkish ambassadors to Italy and also the Turkish authorities that Turkey also agrees with this point. So basically, there is a political will behind it, and the companies are working already together. But I think they can do more in terms of opening markets in different places, so they can use Turkey or Italy to open markets in different places. One of these places is Africa. Africa is a very neglected part of the world so far. By any nation actually. Africa is unfortunately, we know Africa with the poverty and all kinds of hardships to live there, to work, to do business there. But there is definitely a political will behind the Turkish investments to Africa. As you can see here, in 2003, Turkey's investments in Africa, Turkish trade volume with Africa equals to $5.4 billion. But in 2020, it's now $25.3 billion. So it's a five-fold increase. So it's a huge increase. So right now, the Turkish direct investments to Africa sums up $6 billion. It was much less actually before. Especially, we're talking about certain countries. There are several countries where our relationship is economical relationship, and the turnover of the trade is more than $1 billion. You can see here, like for Nigeria and South Africa, Ghana is closing up. So basically, this is a huge improvement actually. So Turkey and African countries have business councils that they created together, and these are working actually very well. I mean, Turkey has trade and economic corporations with 48 countries, mutual promotion and protection of investment agreements with 32 countries now, prevention of double taxation agreements with 15 countries. So, I mean, if an Italian company would like to do business in certain places of Africa, I mean, they can, of course, try to go there and do that alone. But if there is a Turkish company who's already doing that and who's already taking benefit of, you know, Turkey's Republic of Turkey's investments in Africa, double taxation treaties and investment treaties, then it may do so with a Turkish company to get more out of their investments. Again, in order to show you the Turkey's presence in Africa, here, this slide is also very important. Well, I took these slides already especially for these Turkish contractors business that Turkish contractors did in Africa so far. So they took a part in almost 1,500 projects, which sums up to $70 billion. Again, the trade volume is like $25 billion. This created this investment of Turkish companies, and Turkish companies created 100,000 jobs in Africa. Look, this is not only happening in the economic front. I mean, it is basically, this chart shows very clearly Turkey's approach towards Africa. It is embassies in Africa increased, I mean, considerably. If you compare it with 2002, we had only 12 embassies in Africa. But in 2021, we have already 43, you know, the embassies in Africa. Every year, it seems that every year Turkey has opened almost 2 embassies. So in the last 20 years, that shows how Turkey is treating Africa and how important Africa is for Turkey, actually. So some part of this slide is Turkish, unfortunately, we took it from a news site, but it is, I personally thought that it's a good slide to show that, you know, Turkey covers almost every country in Africa. I mean, we are only a few countries that we do not have any presence there. Coming to the...
Sorry, Çağatay
Sure.
Bey. Thank you so much, but we have a problem as Gino Costa, he's in the airport and he has to catch his flight.
Okay.
So maybe we will come back to you, as it is a very interesting presentation, we will come back to you afterwards. So now just for technical issues, I will give the floor to Gino Costa, who is the country representative for Italy of investment in Turkey. And I would like to remind that Investment in Turkey is a supporting partner of this event, along with the Italian Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Istanbul.
Sure.
And you spoke quite well about the importance of the companies investing in Turkey. I would like to say that nowadays there are more than 1,500 Italian companies there. And on the 12th of April, we will have our 3rd event, on this Italy and Turkey complementarity towards Asia and Africa. And the event will be hosted by Studio Grimaldi in Rome. And we will bring to the table some, successful case of companies operating in Turkey, and in a way that we can create more synergies towards 3rd countries as well. So now I leave the floor to Gino Costa, who will make a presentation on the resilience and agility of Turkey. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and sorry for really stopping the presentation. So interesting part of Africa presence and recent developments. But yes, the Istanbul snow actually has caused me this difficulty, and I had to reroute and mess up my timing. I'm very sorry for that. Yes, resilience and agility. I think they are 2 key words that show really the strength and not only the potential, the reality of Turkey. Turkey is already the 11th largest economy in the world. And the recent data have shown that in 2021, it has reported the highest GDP increase in the world with 11% plus, which come after a 1.8% positive GDP development in 2020, the big pandemic year, the first pandemic year. So the purchasing parity power, Turkey is now the 11th country, the 11th economy in the world. And in the last 20 years, basically, it has reported an average GDP increase of 5.4%. So in the medium long term is definitely a growing and a reliable and resilient market. Here a few graphs show the financially important aspects. In fact, the ratio of gross public debt stock versus GDP for Turkey is now in the range of 40% compared to an average of Europe, which is going to over 90% nowadays. And the budget balance, in fact, a ratio with GDP, is below the Maastricht criteria, although of course it's bouncing a bit up due to the COVID crisis, which has hit the whole world. So very positive, very good and reassuring country financial parameter, I would say. The annual inflation, of course, is an issue. The last official figures of annual inflation show a 54.4% increase year on year, which is a huge jump up compared to the last 10 years. But here on this graph, you can see the evolution of the inflation in Turkey since 1973. It is the first year to the left. The country has been used, let's say, to wave around 70 or even 100% points, and just brought down in the range of 8 to 10% in the last few years. And so the inflation per se is, of course, a big problem for society, especially in the initial phase, but for the economy itself, for the industries, can even be an opportunity to some extent. And there are some figures which can show that in a slide after this. But first I want to show you this trend of the Turkish currency versus dollar. This is a graph of Banca d'Italia, the Italian central bank, which shows how the Turkish lira since 2018, beginning of 2018, has been weakened more or less constantly. Then it had a hike in November, December last year, and then a stabilization till these few days, in fact, around 13.5 versus dollar, or 15.3 versus euro. Even the first week of Ukrainian war has not really moved the currency much. And this is a second point, in fact, which sometimes worries and affects the confidence of the foreign investors. So inflation and currency stability. But at the end of the day, it is a robust economy. Last year, I recorded an 81% increase in the inflow of foreign direct investments into Turkey, which have reached $14.1 billion. And it has also reported a record export value to over $225 billion, which is the highest ever recorded export volume from Turkey. So two positive factors at the end of the day in a very difficult year. How this FDI inflows has performed? Well, first of all, at the graph in the upper left side, you can see how the total value of billions of dollars coming from abroad have changed from the period 73 to 2002, a period of 30 years, which has recorded $15 billion coming into the country. But the 19 years, the most recent 19 years from 2003 have recorded about $240 billion flow into the country. The number of foreign companies in Turkey has gone up from 5.6 to 76,000 over. The geographic breakdown on the investments in the last 20 years have been mostly from Europe, 72%, and US at 8%, but growing portion from Asia, which is now at 18%. And to the right, low pie graph, you can see the breakdown of the sectors where these investments have been accumulated, mostly finance, but also manufacturing, naturally, energy, and very much on ICT. Italy, Turkey, Çağatay has already mentioned some facts, and Mrs. Giannotta said that there are more than 1,500 companies, Italian companies actively operating in Turkey. Yes, for a total of over $5 billion of Italian investments to Turkey since 2002. And last year has also recorded the highest figure of bilateral trade, Turkey-Italy, with $23 billion, basically balanced, import almost equal to exports. Well, on the bottom part of the slide, you can see some of the companies, Italian companies, which have invested in Turkey and are there quite happy, I would say after seeing the results of the survey on the 17th of February. Turkey has now a population of about 85 million, with more than 20 urban cities, urban centers with more than 1 million population, which means urbanization normally means increase of purchasing power, increase of capacity of consumption. So it is a domestic market, a big domestic market with access to foreign markets, to about a billion of consumers, including Europe, with European Union, at least, with which Turkey has a customs union, so no barrier, and quite a large number of free trade agreements, 28 countries with free trade agreements. So it's also a very important hub for the surrounding areas which have coinciding working hours, more than 16 time zones with coinciding working hours with Turkey. So the advantage is definitely the proximity to major markets, the connectivity assured mostly by Turkish Airlines, which is the airline connecting the most destinations in the world at the moment, with a fantastic position to be a manufacturing or exporting hub. But we can see down some brands, some companies which have made Turkey as their manufacturing hub. Hugo Boss, for instance, with the largest production in its overall industrial setting, and is now, I think, doubling the investment in Izmir, with Ford and Toyota, which are exporting more than 80% of their production, but many other companies which have made Turkey as a commercial hub to reach a large number of countries. Çağatay has already mentioned the favorable demographics. Less than the average of Turkey is less than 33 years of age, and we can see to the left side, upper left side, the shape of the demographic of Turkey compared to the shape of the demographic of Europe, which is unfortunately getting older and older. And of course, the total dependency ratio, lower graph to the right side, shows how the productive population of Turkey is still at a very good ratio compared to the non-productive ones, meaning those between 0 and 14 years and over 65 years of age. Well, somehow this is comforted by the graph on the left bottom side, the working age population, which is growing in Turkey. So the population in the working period, unfortunately, comparing to the decreasing one in Europe. So it's a skilled, definitely good population, large population, skilled population. There are over 1 million graduates from universities in Turkey every year, and about 500,000 graduated from technical and professional schools. So The graphs on the upper part, the bar graphs, show how this makes very easily available qualified engineers as well as senior managers compared to other countries like Poland, Slovenia, Romania, which are normally competing with Turkey in terms of attractiveness. The labor force educational level, we can see how it has changed through the year. And now there are about 27% of the labor force university graduated compared to the 10% in 2002. The cost of living in Turkey is pretty low, also thanks somehow to the currency trend. And the remuneration of management and engineers, including bonuses and variable, is among the lowest ones, $36,000 a year, compared to the 150,000, of course, of Germany. Coming to reforms, Turkey is continuously going through reforms to bring its legislation, especially the commercial code, closer and closer to the business needs. Facts show that there are just 7 days necessary to fully establish a company in Turkey, and that the regulatory restrictiveness index recorded by the World Bank shows that Turkey has one of the lowest index, meaning that the laws and regulation more open to foreign investors. And also in the lower graphs, you can see how Turkey has improved its ranking in the World Bank ease of doing business reports that they do it every year. So it's now at the 33rd position among the easiest countries to do business in the world. It's a very good environment for research and development. There are more than 500 international companies which have set their own research and development centers in Turkey, taking advantages of the technoparks, taking advantages of the very favorable ecosystems. And here you can see some of these companies with their logos. This is really a slide that I like a lot because it shows how the young population of Turkey, well-educated and young population, is capable to create and bring innovation. Turkey is now in the Super League of early stage investments. So investments in startups in 2021. You see that over $1.6 billion have been invested in early stage companies in 2021. And this really shows the future of Turkey. So this shows already the reality, in fact, because there are important industrial sectors, automotive, but machinery for white goods and TV. Turkey is a leader in Europe since some years. Aerospace and defense, big investments are still going on and increasing even in this sector, but also agricultural and food. They have an export of about $19 billion every year. And infrastructure, where Turkey has invested massively in the last 20 years in roads, airports, ports, and now more and more in fast trains and railway connections. So the investment office of the Presidency of the Republic of Turkey, which I represent together with Mr. Nocera for Italy, gives a set of services to the investors, Italian investors, free of charge, of course, supported by the Turkish government, to show to the investors, of course, what are the incentives they can achieve, what they can get in Turkey while they invest in Turkey, either if they invest in manufacturing or if they invest to export or for research and development. There are different opportunities like the free zones, specifically for the exporters, or the organized industrial zones, which offer fully infrastructured lands and premises. And naturally, as I said, particularly for innovation, there are technology development zones and technoparks. Apart from that, we are a public institution, but with a very private approach. So to have the strength of the institutional body and the flexibility, the agility of a private institution. We help the companies to understand the market with the sectorial studies, to get in touch with the potential partner, to, of course, access, as I said, to the different type of investments, and to set up their company, not as with the, of course, the practicality and professionality that the legal office can do, but at least to give a frame, to give guidelines, what it means and how to do it, then getting necessarily the support of professional professional cabinets like legal or tax cabinets. And naturally, we facilitate the visits of investors to Turkey. We organize visits of investors and we organize meetings for them. So this was it. In our presentation, you will get our contacts as well. I thank you very much for the time. I thank you for the attention, and I give the floor back to Ms. Giannotta.
Grazie, dottor Costa. Io faccio lo switch in italiano perché appunto la traduzione simultanea ha ricominciato a funzionare, è stata ripristinata. Le auguro buon viaggio. Giuclar in Italia, e passerei la parola all'avvocato Carlo Cugnasca, che è il partner fiscale del Grimaldi Studio Legale. Ricordo appunto che, essendo la traduttrice molto attiva, ha bisogno di un momento di pausa, per cui l'avvocato farà i primi 10 minuti in lingua inglese senza l'assistenza della traduzione simultanea. Avvocato Cugnasco, a lei la parola.
Thank you very much, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. I will address.
No. Okay.
And welcome to this section of the webinar where I will address the tax aspects of prospective client in Italian investment in Turkey and abroad. From a tax perspective, investments in Turkey can be made in two ways, as Çağatay explained before. One way is to incorporate a Turkish subsidiary, and the other way is to incorporate a Turkish branch for the Italian legal entity. In both scenarios, we have to take in mind that Turkey is still not part of the European Union, and therefore it cannot benefit from all the directives relating to tax that are today in force in the European Union. So accordingly, we will not be able to benefit for our investments in Turkey from the European dividend directive, neither or the interest royalty directives, as well as those directives that regulate the extraordinary transactions, such as the merger directive. So everything shall be governed by the domestic rules, either at the level of Turkey and at the level of Italy, and taking into mind that there is a double taxation agreement that Italy and Turkey signed at the beginning of 1990. First of all, we will look at the Turkish subsidiary. The first stage of analysis is how to finance the company. And this can be done either by way of equity or quasi-equity, such as share capital or capital reserves, or through a shareholder loan. From an Italian tax perspective, a repayment of share capital and capital reserve does not trigger any taxation in Italy, provided that, however, there are no profit reserves available in the net equity of the subsidiary. On the other hand, if profit reserves are available, any distribution of capital reserve is treated as a distribution of profit and taxed as a dividend. With respect to shareholder loans, one has to take in mind that, first of all, transfer pricing rule shall be respected. Accordingly, it should be, if an interest is provided, it should be a Hamsman principle. And then, as far as repayment is concerned, we have to know that Turkey applies a 10% withholding tax on interest payment. And from the Italian perspective, any interest received by the Italian holding company would be fully taxable according to the Italian ordinary rules. For the other flows of income, which are typically governed by the relationship between two entities, one is first the royalties. Royalties paid by a Turkish subsidiary are subject to a 20% withholding tax, but it can be reduced to 10% under the Italy-Turkey double tax treaty. And at the same time, a royalty would be fully taxable again in Italy for Italian corporate tax purposes. As for dividends, Chagatai already explained to us that dividends are subject to a 10% withholding tax in Turkey, but you may remember that Italy has a very effective participation exemption regime for dividends and capital gains. Accordingly, only 5% of the gross dividend would be subject to tax in Italy at 24%. Thus, the aggregate tax burden for any dividend received by a Turkish subsidiary in Italy would be 1.2%. As you can see in the slides, there is an exception if the subsidiary is located in a low tax country. This is because Italy implemented CFC rules, and since Turkey is not part of the European Union or the European Economic Area, Italian CFC theoretically can apply also to Turkish subsidiary. However, one of the conditions that must be in place for CFC rule to apply is that the foreign subsidiary effective tax rate is lower than 50% of the Italian tax rate. Today, tax rate in Italy is 24, so 50% is 12. And now, as Chagatai explained to us before, the Turkish corporate tax is 20–25%, depending on the year, and the reform has been put in place. So, in principle, Italian CFC regulation should not apply. However, a case-by-case analysis should be carried on in this respect, because exemption regimes that are available in Turkey may impact this scenario. As far as capital gain tax is concerned, and we are talking about here the exit strategies, in principle, under the participation exemption regime in Italy, capital gains are taxed only at 1.2%, meaning that only 5% of the capital gain is subject to tax in Italy. If these conditions are met, first of all, must be an holding period of 12 months. The shares should be accounted as a fixed financial assets in the balance sheet of the Italian company. The subsidiary should not be resident in a blacklist country or low tax country. And the subsidiary should carry out a sound business activity at least from 2 years from its inception. However, one has always to look at also domestic Turkey law in order to understand if Turkey has the right to tax any capital gain realized by an Italian company from the sale of a Turkish subsidiary. In principle, double tax treaty between Italy and Turkey provide a full exemption from capital gains tax in Turkey, meaning that any capital gains would only be taxed in Italy. However, one has to consider a particular provision under the Italy-Turkey tax treaty, which is governed by Article 13.5, under which Turkey would retain the right to tax capital gains realized by foreign investors if the purchaser of the shares is resident in Turkey, and unless the shares of the Turkish company object of the sale are traded on the Turkish stock exchange. So, full exemption in Turkey unless the purchaser is resident in Turkey for tax purposes. The other way to make investments in Turkey could be through the incorporation of a branch. In principle, according to the branch rules, profit and losses realized by a foreign branch of an Italian company are fully included in the tax base of the Italian company for corporate tax purposes, and transfer pricing applies with respect to any transaction included between the Italian company and its Turkish branch. In this case, in this scenario, a foreign tax credit is available in Italy for any tax paid in Turkey with respect to the same profits. And you have to consider that this regime was the only one applicable with respect to foreign branch of Italian companies until 2015. However, starting from 2016, Italy introduced a new regime, which is called branch exemption, according to which is an optional regime, which applies to all foreign branches of an Italian company. So you cannot choose which country do you apply the exemption, but you have to apply it to all your branches. It's not revocable, and it's not available for branches located in low tax countries unless certain conditions are met. Meaning that according to the branch exemption regime, profit and losses of the foreign branch do not concur to the taxable income of the Italian company. Basically, what happens under the branch exemption regime is that the branch is treated just like a subsidiary. So you have to apply transfer pricing, but the advantage is that profits attributed by the branch through the Italian company would not be subject to tax in Italy. So basically, under the branch exemption regime, the branch would only pay taxes in Turkey and not pay taxes in Italy on the profits that it generates. However, differently from subsidiaries, in case of a sale of a foreign branch, it is not possible to avail itself of the Italian participation exemption, and so capital gains deriving from the sale of the branch would be ordinarily subject to corporate tax in Italy. I thank you very much for the attention. I leave my speech to Leonida, and again, any questions are available for you. Thank you very much.
Grazie mille, Avvocato Cugnasca. E appunto lascio la parola a Leonida Cagli che ci fornirà un overview sull'internazionalizzazione delle aziende italiane con un focus sugli aspetti finanziari. Grazie.
Thank you, Valeria. Thank you, everybody. The purpose of this intervention is to overview, after the speeches we have the chance to listen, to provide an overview of the instruments which are currently available to the Italian company with a view of internationalizing their business. So this overview can be helpful to provide a description of those instruments and to give an idea to the company which to invest in Turkey, of which are the instruments available provided by CIMEST, which is the entity in charge of providing those support. CIMEST is an entity which is currently part of the Cassa Depositi and Prestiti. As of today, is controlled by SACE and with a majority participation. The rest of the share capital is owned by the banks and Italian banks and banking association. It should be noted that it is under completion a transfer of the participation of SACE in Cassa Depositi Prestiti, SACE in CIMEST, and CIMEST will be held directly by Cassa Depositi e Prestiti. This transaction should be considered in the framework of the more important transaction envisaging the transfer of SACE from CDP to the Ministry of Economy and Finance. So as of the date of this presentation, CIMEST is owned by SACE, but this scenario will change in the next weeks after the transaction should be completed, but it is a transaction which is underway. Coming to the range of instruments offered by CIMEST, these instruments can be divided in three main categories. The first one is a category represented by equity investments. Then there are forms of export credit support, and finally there are more recent instruments represented by soft loan for internationalization. Coming to the first set of instruments, the equity investments, those instruments are represented by direct investment by CMEST or in foreign subsidiaries of Italian companies, or directly in the share capital of the Italian companies. In this second case, the investment by CMEST, which is carried out through the subscription of dedicated capital increase, provides that the equity injected by CMEST should be destined to the internationalization of the company. So always with a focus, with a view to increase the international presence of the Italian company. In terms of size of the investment, CMEST, there is a threshold which cannot be exceeded, and this threshold is 49% of the total share capital of the foreign companies. This is a general threshold. Then, in any case, there is a second rule envisaged that CMEST cannot have a participation which is higher of the participation held by the Italian promoting company in a foreign subsidiary. As a complementary measure to the investment directly made by CMEST, there are the investment provided by the venture capital fund, which is participation, which is an instrument additional and complementary to the direct participation of CMEST, and which can be used for investments in extra-EU countries or in EU countries. The venture capital fund is a public fund which is managed by CMEST on the basis of a convention with the Italian Foreign Affairs International Cooperation Ministry. The fund expects a remuneration which is equal to the BCA rate plus a spread which is set forth on the basis of the size class of the companies. In terms of size, again, it should be remarked that the overall participation held by CMEST together with the venture capital fund cannot exceed the 49% of the foreign company, and again cannot exceed in any case the share of the Italian promoting company. Another instrument which is in terms of direct equity investment which must be analyzed is the interest subsidies for equity investment. In such a case, these are a form of subsidies which have an impact directly to the cost of financing of the acquisition of the foreign company. In terms of size, this financing cannot exceed 90% of the share capital of the share of the financing of the Italian company, and cannot exceed 51% of the share capital of the foreign companies. This is a first overview of the equity investment instrument. Then there is a second category which is represented by the export credit support. In this case, the purpose of the CMEST intervention is to facilitating the export credit, providing interesting conditions in terms of deferring the payment by foreign customers of Italian companies, deferred period of over 24 months at conditions which are in line with those offered by international competitors. This contribution is completely free of charge for the applicant companies. It's important to remark. This kind of contribution can take two main forms. The first one is a contribution to buyer credit, which has the mean to reduce the overall cost of the export financing through a real stabilization of the financing rate at a subsidy fixed rate, which is equal to the commercial interest reference rate, together with obviously with the non-refundable subsidy, which should to be applied as an interest. Then we have a second form, which is a contribution on credit provider, which is directly an instrument in the form of a non-refundable subsidy to be applied as interest, which is paid in a single installment to the applicant company. In terms of rationale of this second instrument, the idea is to reduce in part or in certain cases in full the cost of mobilizing payment instrument issued by foreign buyers versus contracts for the export of goods and services. Then CMEST recently has introduced two further instruments, always with an objective, a target to improve the position of small-sized company in their international presence, their effort to increase their international presence. A first instrument is a contribution on export leasing, which is basically aimed to help Italian companies that lease capital and goods and services on foreign counterparties, or Italian leasing companies that purchase goods and services from Italian manufacturers to lease those goods and manufacturers or serviced to foreign counterparties. A second of this new set of instruments is represented by the letter of credit contribution, which is a contribution given to the foreign bank issuer in order to reduce the overall interest of cost of medium long-term financing of export letter of credits. This instrument has the advantage to pursue a stabilization of the letter of credit rate at the subsidized fixed rate. Then we have a last set of measures which are part of always aim to pursue the internationalization of the business of the companies, and are focused on the role which has CMEST as manager on behalf of the Ministry for Economic Development of the Fund 394/81, which in the framework of the Next EU Generation provides low interest loans through the National Recovery and Resilience Plan. Three are the lines of these soft loans. The first line represented by loans which are aimed to support the digital and green transition of small and medium-sized company which want to increase their international presence. Then we have a second category which is basically aimed to develop the e-commerce sector of certain company through the creation of new e-commerce platform, or for access a third-party platform. Finally, the third sector where these loans can be used is aimed to increase the visibility and presence of small and medium-sized company in trade fair and other international events. Thanks. This was my presentation. I leave the floor to Valeria.
Grazie mille, dottor Cagli. Vedo che è arrivato l'avvocato Sciaudone, quindi lascerei la parola a Francesco Sciaudone, che è Managing Partner di Grimaldi Studio Legale. Grazie.
Sorry, Valeria, Francesco had another appointment in urgent to attend, so he will not be able to join. Apologies.
Ok, quindi niente, appunto overlap di impegni. E vediamo se ci sono delle domande. Per adesso
No, no.
no, non c'è nessuna domanda.
no.
Abbiamo ancora qualche minuto prima di chiudere.
No, possiamo chiudere.
Possiamo chiudere. Çağatay, if you have anything to add, since I just interrupt you beforehand, we have just a couple of minutes more and then we can close it.
Yes, I only had a few slides left. It was showing basically the Turkish cultural relations with Africa, and also was talking about the Turkish relations with some Asian countries very nearby Turkey. But I think we can close it now with that.
Ok, then. Quindi se non ci sono altre domande dal pubblico, insomma, io ringrazio tutti voi per l'attenzione. Thank you Çağatay, çok teşekkür ediyoruz.
Thank you very much.
E vi rimando al prossimo appuntamento, che sarà il 12 di aprile in presenza e anche in formato ibrido per chi non ci potrà essere, appunto presso lo studio Grimaldi a Roma. Si potrà collegare online, ovviamente a breve manderemo tutte le informazioni relative all'evento. Insomma, ancora grazie mille per l'attenzione, grazie ai relatori per gli interessantissimi insight. Ancora una volta si conferma la grande partnership italo-turca e appunto, come ci diciamo spesso, è qualcosa di più che va oltre la semplice amicizia. Una buona serata dunque.
Grazie a
Grazie
tutti.
mille.
Buonasera.
Arrivederci, grazie.